Good afternoon, Stephanie.
Good afternoon, how are you?
I'm well, how are you?
Good, good.
Okay, so I came into your classroom 2 days ago
Yes.
and reviewed a geometry lesson. Some of the things that I noticed when I came in was your agenda board had the date, it had the objectives, the agenda, so students knew exactly what they were doing for that day. Do you remember what the objective was for that day?
I believe that it was recognizing angle pairs. So it was the introduction to a new unit.
Okay, yes. And as you were, like the hook right before you got into the new unit, you said like where you brought together like the do now, like why the do now was important. You said something to the effect of we're learning new vocabulary words, so we have to make sure that we know the old vocabulary words, so we're not struggling with those. Because yes, they were learning a lot of new vocabulary words. Some of the other things that I noticed that were really great, the urgency in the classroom was very evident. I could tell that the students recognized like every minute mattered and the time is essential to their understanding of the content. Another thing was during the Mad Minute, and when you passed out the reference sheet, you had the papers at the end of the row. You told the students to pass down the papers, and they did that within 10 or 15 seconds, so they were moving efficiently, so that also speaks to like, urgency in the classroom, which is really great. And getting students to participate, so sometimes like only 2 students would raise their hands, or maybe 3.
Yeah.
And we want more students to participate, so you said, I'm waiting for 5 hands, or I'm waiting for 7 hands, and I think that's really like a unique way to positively frame it versus I need more hands up or something like that. Like just helping the students recognize, okay, if she's waiting for 5 hands and my hand isn't up, let me see if I can figure out the answer to the question and raise my hand, so that was good. And you used turn and talks, which were really great. And another thing that I wanted to point out was you said you asked a question and then somebody raised their hand and you called on the student. And the student was a little unsure with their answer. So you said, tell me, don't ask. What do you think the effect was for that student when you said that?
Yeah, I think definitely I feel like that happens most with my low-medium students who, not even the low-mediums, just in general, like maybe a medium student who is really shy, who always knows the answer but just doesn't have that like oomph to just participate all the time. So I think that, allowing them to have the confidence to know that like, even if you're unsure, still say it where everyone can hear you, because if you are right, then, the whole class needs to hear you.
Right.
And so just making sure that we push them to have confidence in their answers, even if it's wrong, right? Because like, if we say wrong and then move, like that just kills their confidence.
Right.
And so making sure that, we push them that even if it's wrong, to have confidence, and then if it is right, like say it with the confidence to, have reassurance in your answer for sure.
Right, and math confidence is really important because for some reason everyone's afraid of math. So
that anxiety,
right,
anxiety.
Exactly. So although you spoke to just one student when you said, tell me, don't ask, how do you think that affected everyone else in the class?
Yeah, I think that definitely reinforces the expectation across the board. So if they know that like in the future, if they answer a question, then they need to have confidence, whether it's right, wrong, whatever, just they all hear that and they know like, oh, okay, if I answer a question, she's gonna say the same thing to me.
Right. So I think it just try. And I think you delivered that message in the classroom. Try to answer the question. Just put forth your best effort. All right, so now we're gonna move into some areas of growth. Cool. The first one, we are going to watch a short clip.
Great, my favorite part.
I know, we all love to watch ourselves on film. So this is during the Do Now review. And I want you're gonna call on Deja, who's
hi.
Right. So I want you to think about your moves during this short time and also what Deja is saying. Let's make sure this is good. Okay, hold on.
Yeah, peanut. Yep.
Alright, let's go.
Go on. So, setting up that relation, because there are vertical angles, should give us that y is equal to 18. Have we answered the question? Have we answered the question? Disha? No, why? Because what are they asking us? Yep. Louder. Good. So, first we solve for y, then she substitutes here. She does 2y plus 6 to get angle AEC. So for angle AEC or CEA, she will get 42 degrees. So now that I know that this is 42 degrees, what?
All right. So what things did you notice in that short minute clip?
So she's really high, but doesn't always speak super, super loud. So I think I should have stayed like further away from her to make her project even more.
Okay.
And they're all quiet, but not listening.
Okay.
Like fake listening, in the sense that they're not doing other things to imply that they're not listening, but you can just tell by just the vibe, I guess, that's the right word I'm looking for, that
Okay.
they're not really listening. And everything she said was like super, super great. Like she models sometimes some really, really great answers.
Okay.
And especially knowing that like geometry, they struggle with answering the question. I think that was like a good question, but just like a quick, like have someone repeat what she said in a more concise statement.
Okay.
Would have been a better like, all right, so everyone back over here. Like, what did she just say really quickly?
Okay. So also thinking, I agree. They did look like, okay, I'm here. She's talking.
Mm-hmm.
I'm here. But so Deja, you said she's a high student, so you knew she calling on her, you would get your answer. And then what did you do after she gave you the information?
I don't remember.
So she gave you, she said the steps, and they were clear, and then you went and modeled, right? So what could you have done while she was giving the steps?
Oh, I see.
To possibly, like you said, help the students focus better and be more engaged?
Yeah, so I definitely she could have been the teacher voice and I could have done the modeling, so that way I have an observable action for everyone, so I know that they are not just present but actually listening. So if for example, I say, okay, Daisha, walk us through what we need to do, then writing everything as she's saying it, and that way if I scan, if people don't have their pencils or they're not writing, then I know they're really not listening.
Yeah.
So like just combining the two, because that also like cuts the time for sure.
So like I said before, there is urgency in the classroom, but then like if you were to combine, if you find spots where you can combine two things, where you lessen the time a little bit, that would be really helpful. But I do think it was very helpful for her to say it and for you to then write it. And like you said before, also with having another student repeat it.
Yeah.
So what do you think would be the effect of possibly having another student repeat it or writing as Daisha's speaking?
Yeah, so I think definitely for the students who I know tend to like nod off or not like listening but not internalizing what's being said, definitely just having them a quick CFU on what she just said. That way everyone else knows that they're being held accountable to not only listen to what I'm saying, but to what their peers are saying also.
Yeah, because a lot of times students tend to just listen to you or their friend, or sometimes the student that's high that they know will have the answer. But it is important that we increase engagement even if a student that's low skilled is talking.
Right.
So that everyone's paying attention and they recognize
Definitely.
that what everyone's saying is important. How do you think that would increase like the confidence in the classroom? So when you say things like, I'm waiting for 5 hands, maybe more hands will go up. How do you think making sure that students are engaged as everyone's engaged as someone's giving responses would increase math confidence?
Yeah, so I think that making sure that everyone knows that each person's right. So if Daisha's a high student, then they already sort of, like you said, they kind of know she's going to give the right answer. But even if I call on someone else, just knowing that, each student has something to contribute to the class and they should be listening regardless. And that way, you know, if that student feels that whatever they said is important, then in the future when they raise their hand, they'll know that their voice is equally as important as it was before.
I agree. Okay, let's now look at, so I took some other data.
Mm-hmm.
So based on like the first 20 minutes of class, I checked off for questions were information that you gave. So like in the first minute you gave information, you asked a specific question, then in the second minute questioning. So this was mostly the do now and then into the filling out of the reference sheet. So what do you notice about like where there are X's? So X's mean like this happened during that minute.
Well, no praise, which that's bad. Which I realize that I do more with my freshmen, but I should probably try to also do with the sophomores. I know the freshmen really love it. Like they, for some reason, are obsessed with like hearing their name in like a positive frame. So I think that, you know, it's still beneficial to the sophomores. And this class is very like, the Orange class is just so like calm.
Yeah.
Like they're a very interesting group. It's just so like laid back. Like I don't even know how to explain it. Just like water, like a waterfall. They're just so like.
I understand. I felt that as I was in the classroom.
They're just so like
calm.
Exactly. Yeah, and so I think that, you know, it's calm but urgent, but just creating like a more, like definitely including some praise, especially in the beginning, for students who are doing the right thing. So like, for example, this junior high vocab, so maybe a praise for like, oh, that's so great that Kaylin is remembering all of our vocab from Unit 2. Great job, Kaylin, or something like that. And definitely making sure that if I'm doing the heavy lifting like I was here, there's definitely some correction that needed to happen. I'm certain of that. So just making sure that, you know, I notice correction when the heavy lifting is on me versus them also. Yeah.
And also during like the do now time, you're moving more because it is review, and that's usually natural because when you're modeling, you're like at the doc cam and trying to make sure like you're writing clear and you're speaking clearly so that students understand exactly what's happening. So what could you do to, let's start with, you said that there were some corrections that probably should have happened. So what do you think you could have done to ensure that those corrections were taking place?
Yeah, so I think definitely, especially because we were filling out a reference sheet, doing sort of like a checkpoint, like after we filled in 3 boxes saying blank, 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 box 1, 2, 3, let's repeat what we just wrote, and then that way everyone's focused on what the student is saying and I can just scan, because they don't really need me at that moment. The student is just reviewing what I just did, and so that gives me the opportunity to scan for any corrections that I need. So giving myself the switch so that I don't need to be speaking, so if I need to correct someone, I have the moment to do that.
Yeah, I agree. That sounds great. What about praise? So we talk about this a little.
Yeah.
So we do have the point system.
Right. That is very true.
So do you have a point monitor in this class? Okay, who's your point monitor?
Patrick.
Oh, of course. Okay.
Yeah, Patrick?
I covered for him, like, it covered some of his classes.
Yeah,
Classes he was in for last year, and he was also the point monitor in that class. So
yeah, he's like North Star bred. Him and Kaylin have been in North Star since they were in kindergarten.
Galesburg?
I don't know, but which I wonder if anyone is tracking them.
That's a good question.
Because they're 2 of the highest in my class, and I just found out that Kaylin got the highest PSAT score verbal for the whole school. So. So,
maybe.
Like, I wonder, someone should be, like, we need to see what the data is on, like, kids who, like,
started. I'm
like,
sure there's something
that's
being done.
That would be really cool.
Yeah.
But, yeah, anyway, so, yeah, so just giving positive, especially on a unit that is so, like, vocab heavy, like, if we ask a question and a student gives it back with, like, 3 or 4 vocab words in, then, like, I think that definitely, like, warrants a point so that everyone in the class feels, like, how much we appreciate a student who can use all of the vocab like integrated into multiple answers and stuff.
Because it's a lot of vocab.
It definitely
is. I've noticed it in my class as well. Just finding ways to get students to recall the vocabulary, because we do want them to use the math vocabulary. And you were pushing for math vocabulary during the do now with the review. So I know, like, moving forward, there will definitely be a push of all the special English tips that they learned during this the
Yep.
student.
Yeah, or even doing a show call for work that, especially with like parallel lines, like annotations and like just being organized is gonna be so like key for such a diagram heavy unit. Like just, you know, maybe a show call and a point for someone who is like really on point with their congruence arcs or angle relations. Like, you know, they write the relationship, they write the equation statement, they write everything. So, you know, trying to incorporate praise and review like all.
So if you
Married.
take one person's work and show call it,
Mhm.
what do you think is going to happen with all the other students?
I think they definitely do like a self check. They're like my work doesn't look like that, and
Right.
they sort of they become self conscious about their work, because I think that also highlights the fact that like I am actually looking at your paper when I come around. Like I'm not just looking for the right answer, because I think sometimes that's what they like in their mind. Like I don't know if they actually realize that we're genuinely looking at like
What you're doing.
yeah, not just the right answer, because like obviously we come around and check and circle and stuff, but like maybe, you know, even highlighting just a person who's really organized who maybe otherwise doesn't get highlighted because they don't always have the right answer, like maybe highlighting like their annotations on their lines or something.
Right.
Yeah, like giving everybody a chance to shine.
And I think that's important because it allows us to push for, when you praise, it allows you to push for the correct work. And I'm, like you said, I'm not just focused on, did you get the correct answer, but how did you get to the correct answer, which is important as well.
Definitely.
Let's see. So how do you think you can implement, so before we move on, reprimanding, like you said, they're cool, they're calm, they're collected, they're not doing anything,
Outrightly
right.
defiant.
And so you didn't have to do any reprimanding, which is great. That shows that you have a strong presence in your classroom, and there's a positive classroom culture, which is really great. And you know, when we talk about correcting, it's just, are you actually writing? Are you tracking the speaker? Are you doing basically what you're supposed to do? What are some ways that you think you can implement praising next week? So thinking about what lessons.
So next week
Or what
they have a quiz,
Okay.
but we're also moving. So I think definitely considering that next week is a build off of this week, definitely looking for people who model vocab and people who are really, really clear, just because they learned like 12 different angle relationships, right? And so trying to highlight a really organized piece of student work for a show call review, or students who model vocab, or even students who express urgency. Like we always want to highlight urgency, so a student who is like, you know, really working really urgently, just to, you know, even if it's a correction, like a correction by proximity. So if like you're off task and I say like, oh, like whoever the person next to you is like super on task, and you're like, okay, like let me get like this person. So like incorporating like those like 3 different sorts of corrections while also praising.
Okay. Do you think like writing it down somewhere might help?
Yeah, so I think definitely if I like include that like in my like lesson plan, or try to even like hold myself accountable to points. So if I at the end of the week notice that student X doesn't have like, this student lost 5 points in a week, but nowhere in there did I ever try to give them a point.
Right.
To, you know, try to correct or reinforce positive behavior. So maybe like including in my lesson plan to give like 1 point per class to someone who exhibits model behavior.
Yeah, that sounds like a good start. And then like as you start using praise in the classroom with show calls and giving points, it'll definitely become more natural. Like I know it's new with the point system and just actually using it.
Definitely.
But for myself as well, I have to give myself reminders. I maybe put it on a sticky note, write it on my exemplar.
Yeah, I think definitely an exemplar, because we reference that. At least I reference that more than I do my lesson plan, like during the actual.
We're actually up there.
Yeah, so I think that it's important to, you know, write yourself reminders. Like, you know, I've been working with Kyle to like write in like cold calls just to like keep urgency like up in the class. So like using that as like a side note, like you said, like maybe a checkpoint like halfway through the lesson, like have I given praise?
Sounds good.
Yeah, just because we have a million things to think.
Yeah,
So.
and so there's a million things going on in our head. So whatever you can write down to take the thought away, in a sense,
Right.
is very helpful. Very helpful. Do you have any other questions about the observation?
I'd say, how do you think independent practice looked? Like I said, they're usually really calm, so there isn't much there isn't that, I know some other classes, especially with the freshmen, the launch into IP, it's like that, that little murmur.
There wasn't a murmur.
Alright, I don't know, they're just so different, this class.
They got right to work, and even if they didn't understand, they were still trying.
Okay.
And I think that really speaks to the culture that you set in the classroom, because some of my students I'll send them into independent practice and they'll just look at me. And I'm like, hi, get to work. And they're, Miss Robin, I don't understand. I'm like, well, you have to try.
Right.
So, yeah, the independent practice was fine.
Okay.
They went right into the practice like they were supposed to. Did you look at those exit tickets to see?
Yes. They felt trapped to some questions. I think that's the exit ticket where there was a chart at the bottom.
Yes, the exit ticket had 3 different things.
Right, and so I graded the first 2 because the chart was heavy, so I knew they probably didn't finish the third chunk. I thought that was a lot for 5 minutes.
It was.
Yeah. So the chart, they felt trapped too, because the chart had not equational, but numeric relationship, complementary, whatever, what the relationship gave.
Right.
And then it had the angle relationship itself. So some students circled, for example, there was one question where it was vertical angle, but then there was no other, and they just checked another. And
because they thought they had to check.
Yeah, and I was just no, it's only, so I think that charts like that are useful, but then they also need to have that next level of thinking. No, if they're vertical and they're only congruent, why am I checking something else? So I think that overall it looked pretty good.
Okay.
It'll just be interesting to see how it rolls over into the next couple of lessons.
Everything is just building. We have proofs next week.
Yes, so that'll be fun.
Exciting.
But overall, it wasn't horrible. I actually
that's
just
good.
graded them. Yeah, so
Okay.
it should be okay.
All right. So if their mastery on the exit went well, then the lesson went well.
Hopefully the unit
Yeah.
goes better.
All right.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Let me go.